Hey guys, Coach Ben here from CrossFit Tigard PAW. Today we're going to talk about intensity. So certainly if we've done CrossFit, but even if you've never done CrossFit, one thing that you would describe it as is intense. It's hard work. But how do you actually measure intensity? A lot of times we would measure intensity by how we felt. Like when I was running, I thought I was going to die, or I was running and I had to walk, and I didn't think I could do another burpee. The workout was so hard, I had to take my shirt off 5 minutes into it. I had to stop and drink water 5 times. So those would all be just kind of how we feel. That's how a lot of people measure intensity. It just felt really hard. But we can actually measure intensity, and the way CrossFit does that is with average power output. So we're going to talk about what that means to ensure that you're actually getting an intense workout. Not one that just feels hard, but one that we're actually doing lots and lots of work in a short amount of time so that we can get fitter faster. So let's get into the physics a little bit. First of all, just because I know that it's going to be some serious stuff, I got to get my glasses. So let's talk about work. The work that we're doing. Let's say, for instance, pushing a sled. That's a really good way to think about this. So if we look at this, work equals force times distance. So the force would kind of be, let's think about it in the case of a sled, how heavy is the sled? The weight of the sled and the force that I'm applying to it, and then the distance that I move it. So I move a 100-pound sled 100 yards. I did that much work. You can calculate it, you can put it together. In physics, you would come up with different units. You can transfer them to things that make more sense to real people. But how much work am I doing? That's force times distance. Now, to get power out of that, which is CrossFit's definition of intensity, you take that force times distance, so work right here, and you divide it by time. So what's more intense, moving that 100-pound sled 100 yards in 30 seconds, or is it more intense to move that same sled 100 meters in 1 minute? So if we did force times distance divided by time, the power output of moving the sled faster means that workout was more intense. Now let's take an experienced athlete who's the one that moved it very quickly, and a brand new athlete. The brand new athlete would probably say that them taking twice as long to push that sled, just because they're not used to it, they would describe it as infinitely more intense than the experienced athlete that moved it quickly. However, the experienced athlete had a more intense sled push because their power output was higher. So even though that new athlete felt like, oh my gosh, I don't think I've ever pushed a sled that hard. I couldn't feel my legs. It was so hard. I had to sit down and drink some water. It was warm. You actually didn't do quite as intensive a workout because you didn't move that weight as quickly as the experienced athlete. Now, with time, our intensity improves. So as we get fitter, we all know this, as we get fitter, we're able to do more work in a shorter amount of time. And the goal is, for a workout, let's say a benchmark workout like Fran, most people's first Fran is heavily scaled and it takes them 12 minutes. So that 12-minute Fran, everybody remembers their first one, is the hardest thing they feel like they've ever done in their life. People throw up, etc. They would call that a very intense workout. But then after a couple years of training, your Fran is 4 minutes or less. Your power output is so much higher, we would consider that a much more intense workout because it can be measured. You did the same amount of work in a third of the time. So the key is to make sure when we're doing our WODs that we are going quickly with good form and that we're scaling to the appropriate stimulus for that day. So if I overdo it, if I have to RX everything all the time and I'm hitting time caps and I'm doing that on a regular basis, I'm not getting the intensity that I need. If I'm always getting cut off in a time cap and things like that, it means I'm not going fast enough. So although it feels very intense, very difficult, we're gonna get fitter if we can do more reps in a shorter amount of time. So we want it to be challenging. There's always good days where we can make the intensity even more challenging by upping the weight and things like that, but we want to be moving fast. The more work you do in a short amount of time, the fitter you'll be.